So here's our neckband, and you can see the ravel cord. If you bend it, I'm going to remove the ravel cord. As I said earlier, I'm going to remove it after we finish knitting. Okay, before we finish, before we do the band, I'm removing it. I'll remove it now for the band. We have finished the edge, and you can see it, the neckband, and you can see it is neat. This is why I said I like the seam outside, because of this it kind of give a nice edge to it. And this is the inside. Before we pick for the neckband, pick stitches for the neckband, I'm going to start losing the ravel cord. I need to take the ravel cord out. This is going to take quite some time because we knitted it on every needle, or should I say every stitches? Every needle, yes, we use every needle. So it takes some time to lose. You have to take it one after the other so that it can come out neatly without destroying the knitwear. Also, if you try to take more than one at once, it's quite difficult, and if you're not careful, it can also hurt you or destroy the knitwear. So be careful when you do it. So I've picked some out. I'll do the others later. We need to pick stitches for the button band before we pick for the buttonhole. The instruction here is states that for the left front we are going to pick 105 stitches, and we are going to need 14 rows of welt. Because we are doing a thick band like so, because we are doubling the band using one needle, because we are using doubling the band and also using we are using one needle bed without a ribbon. We're going to need 28 rows instead of 14. Then we'll fold. That will give us 14 on one side and 14 on the other side. We'll pick 105 stitches. So what I'll do, I'll push 105 stitches to upper working position. Do this 50. And as we did for the neckband, I'm going to pick the stitches. I'm just going to run the carriage over it so that it moves to upper working position. I'll set our row counter to 000. The stitch die for the first one, we can leave it same, or we can leave it on 8. It's up to so we use 8 because we are going to pick it to form a loop. That's why I like making it going up a bit for the first row, and it's going to knit with the ravel cord because we need to know the row to pick for the loop. Right side facing, I'm going to start picking. I'll start picking the stitches from the neck. Then we all know how to pick from pick the other side, how to the welt. You will have to pick it straight up to the welt here. We need to pick it up to this welt here. It's part of the knit wear, so you have to pick it. So to pick the welt, so I need to go closer. So to pick the welt, we'll make sure that the neckband is straight. Here, I haven't removed the I-cord here. Let me remove the I-cord here first before I do that. I'll just so that I don't complicate issues when I'm trying to remove it after I finish knitting. So I'm just going to remove that quickly. So I've removed it. I've moved loose the I-cord that's close to the edge first. I'll remove the others later. Now we can start working on the neckband. Sorry, on the button band. Okay, so flatten your neckband like so. Insert the transfer tool. Make sure it picks it. Line it properly. The rows should be lined properly. Then pick. You have to double that. So when you're picking, it has to. It's not only you don't have to pick only this front part and leave the back part. You have to pick both together, as if you're sewing them, so that there's no opening. You have to close it and pick both stitches together. Then we'll go to the knitting machine and hang it on the first needle. We'll repeat same. One. You can just pick and hang some first. Then if you need, you can adjust them to make sure it fits the 105 needles. So I've picked for the neckband. I'm going to pick some others for the side and make sure it's straight. So what I'll do, I'll go to the end side and pick for the welt. Then I'll make sure for the I'll pick the welt. Then I'll make sure the remaining ones fit properly in the that these needles fit the middle part. So let's start picking the welt first. The same method, we'll flatten the welt, close the opening. Use our transfer tool to make sure it passes from the front and comes out at the back of the welt. Then we hang it on the first needle on our left. This loose yarn, I'm supposed to tidy it. I'll just put it inside the welt. Okay, let me lose this one first so that I can do that one quickly. And there's the second one. If you have a crochet hook, it's easier. You can just down it into the welt. I think I have one crochet hook here. Just put it through the opening, pass it through the opening, and then I can trim the excess later just to tidy it in. And if you take a look, this loose yarn is not coming out from the back of the, it's not coming out from the back of the knitwear. So only you can see it's not appearing at the back, just in the middle. Alright, so let me keep on picking. Make sure it's a straight line you're picking from, or straight row that you're picking from. You want your work to be straight, not wonky. So when I finish picking the other part, I'll put on the camera. But before then, you can see we've picked the welt, the welt on the waist, and the neckband. We started there. Then we're going to make sure the needles fit the middle section of the knitwear properly. Finish picking the stitches for the bottom band. I'm just going to set our carriage to stitch die 8. The reason is because the first row we are going to knit, we'll need to knit it with a ravel cord. We'll hold the ravel cord and the yarn together as we did for the neckband. We'll hold it together and then we'll knit with it. After we've knitted 28 rows, we'll pick the loop and form the bottom band. Then we'll cast off and then we can knit the buttonhole. After the first row, I'm going to set the carriage to this dot before 8. The reason is I've set the reason why we are on 8, but I'm setting to the dot before 8 because that's the stitch die that I'm using for all the welts, to knit the welt, to knit the remaining rows. It's just the first row that we need it on 8, because of our yarn and the I-cord together, and we are also picking the loop. We don't want it to be too tight that the stitch now has to that the stitch should now break or cut. So put your yarn, just going to take the camera towards the side. You put your yarn into the yarn feeder, set your row counter to 000. The yarn and the Ravel cord should be inside the yarn feeder together. Hold them together and put them together. Sorry. Then we'll knit from right to left. We just need to knit one row. We just need to knit one row with the Ravel cord and the yarn. After that, take your Ravel cord out of the yarn feeder. So I've removed my Ravel cord. I've just removed my Ravel cord. You can see it here. Then I'll change my stitch die and then start knitting. Just change my stitch die and I'm going to knit the second row. "28 rows." Okay, so this is So we've knitted 28 rows and we're going to pick our stitch so that we can form the button band. I'll pick the first and the last, then I'll do the others off camera. And we'll do same as we did for the neckband. So we're now going to pick the loops. We're not picking this upper loop here. We'll pick the one below. That's why it's good to have the Ravel cord to show you where to pick. Just trying to separate the Ravel cord from the loop. You know, they knitted together. So I have to trying to pick only the loop and leave the Ravel cord. Right, I've picked some pair. I'm just going to pick from the welt. I'm going to repeat same for the welt. This step is really time taking, but don't worry, you get. If you don't have a ribber, then you can just make. You can use this one, but even with ribber, I have a ribber. I hardly use my ribber. Instead, I do this for the welt. I prefer this. I like this kind of band, because it gives some kind of weight to the buttonhole. Even after a very long time of using the knitwear, or the band is not weak. So I've done some there, and I've done some on this other side. I'll do the others off camera, and after then we'll knit one row, cast off, and the next step will be to knit our buttonhole. So I finished picking the button band. We need to knit one row from right to left to seal the stitches on the needle. And then we'll cast off. The same cast off method that I've been using, or the same casting off method that I've been using. So we'll continue in that manner. Just wanted to see the little one that I've casted off here. So we'll continue in that manner until we have removed. We'll continue in this process until we have removed all the stitches from the needle bed. And then we'll take off the Ravel cord from the knitwear. The next step after that will be hanging the other side of the knitwear so that we can knit the buttonhole. It's now time to knit the buttonhole band. As it's stated in the instruction here, okay, the buttonhole band is on the right side. With right side facing me, you know, earlier I said I gave the reason why I like the right side, because I like I want the cast off edge to be showing, because I love the kind of edge it gives. So it's on the right side, and we need to pick 105 stitches and knit 14 rows of welt. Because this, I've already picked the 105 stitches, and you can see I made sure it tallies with the one I did earlier for the button band. So this the welt 10, I picked 10 here. I picked 10 for the welt, and body for the waist 10, and for the neckband 10, and the remaining stitches I spread them for the bodies. Set your row counter to 000. Stitch die, I'm using the dot before 8. I don't want to use 8 because I didn't do it swatch on it. Stitch die, I'm using the dot before 8 as I did earlier for the bottom band. So to knit this, we need to knit 14 rows of welt, and because we are going to fold it like a mock rib to make the welt tight, or the bottom band tight, we're going to knit 24 rows. In buttonhole band making, if you were knitting, since you are going to knit 14 rows, we'll knit 7 first. We'll push out the needles for the buttons, then we'll knit another 7 to complete the 14, and then we'll knit 7 again. We'll make the hole out, then we knit the remaining 7. Because 14 divided by 2 is 7. So that's why we are going to knit 7 first, then we'll pick the needle. So let's start, and as we move on, as we continue, I'm going to explain. I'm going to knit 7 first. Yarn in the carriage. So we've knitted 7 rows, and it's time for us to, before we knit the other 7 rows for the first half to make 14 rows, we need to indicate where our buttonhole is going to be. For that, you will need your Ravel cord, and you will need a button. We use the Ravel cord to manually knit to form the holes, and the button, we're going to place it on the knit wheel, and we'll count how many stitches it needs. So placing the button is about 5. 1 2 3 4 5, the end of the button but if you notice, the knit wheel has not rested. And also, I like my buttonhole a bit tight. It's it helps when you have you have done some washing, and maybe the knitwear has expanded also. The buttons will still be intact. I don't want button losing on their own, and I'll find out that it's a buttonhole that we need a bigger button. That's why instead of 5 stitches, we're going to work on 4. I'll reduce it to 4 so that my button can be tight. I've tested it and it has worked for me for a long time. I've been doing children's cardigan for long, and it has really worked it really works for me. So we have 105 needles, and before we start, make sure that the first needle on each side of the needle bed, you're not going to use that to form your buttonhole. So when you're deciding the needles to use, you omit those needles. I'll tell you the reason as we knit on. And the trick I use in getting after deciding that, okay, it's going to be 4 stitches for each to form each buttonhole. So I made some strokes of the needles in that I have on that I'm working on the needle bed. So this one at the bottom, it didn't work out well for me, but the one on top worked really well. So miss the first needle, work the button on the next 4, miss 5 needles. The spacing between the first and the second buttonhole is going to be 5 needles or 5 stitches. So that's how we're going to continue till we get to the end, and this is the last needle. It's not going to be in work position. It's not going to be used for the buttonhole. So let's start. So I've missed the first needle here. Just want to focus the light there. So I've missed the first needle here, and these 4 needles will be used for the buttonhole. So I'll push them to hold position, because we're going to use the Ravel cord to manually knit. I'll just do a few and we'll manually knit. Then we miss 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'll push the next 4 into hold position. So the ones in hold position, we're going to knit with the Ravel cord and push back before we continue knitting. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and push 4. So it's correct. We'll take the Ravel cord. I'll just zoom into one and I'll do the one in the middle. Because you need to take short Ravel cords. Let's start from the one at the edge. And you just manually, I'm just putting it across the 4 needles, and I'm going to push each one to knit it manually. I think we need to go closer so that you see what the needles are doing. So just hang it in the hook. I'm putting my hand on one of the needle. I'm going to pull them one after the other, not to make mistake. So it will knit it through the yarn. And the needle have to be in upper working position because we need it to knit. And then let me put this one. You can knit them one after the other if it's getting too difficult to knit. So I'm going to knit this one after the other. Okay. And make sure it's in upper working position, and the ravel cord is on the hook of the needle. When the carriage passes, it's going to knit. Instead of, if it's not there, your knit is going to drop. There's going to be a hole there. Although we need hole, but we want it to be like a continuous. You understand as we need progress. But we don't want those patterns. It will be like a drop stitch. We don't want those drop stitch. We want it to form a very, as we progress. I don't know how to explain it, but you understand as we go further. So take short ravel cord, or you can use the same long one, but it's better if you use a short ones. And I'm just going to knit the second one. And after knitting every one, I'm going to remember the needles have to be in upper working position because we need it to knit when the carriage is moving. So you can see the needles lining with the needles that are in work position. If it goes to non-working position, it means it won't knit. We need it to continue the knit wear. So we'll continue in this process until we have manually knitted the needles we need for our buttonhole. So now we've finished knitting with our ravel cord. Please don't make it too tight, because you're going to pick those stitches and hang it as we progress. So I'm just going to push all needles to hold position to create ease for my carriage, and to make sure that I have the ravel cord on the actual needles and there's no needle on upper working position. Just trying to protect to make sure that I don't have any needles in non-working position. So we need the remaining 7 rows. Just move gently so that your ravel cord don't get caught in your carriage. Yes, we'll finish the first side of the buttonhole. Oh, sorry, of the buttonhole band. That's what I want to say. And you can see my carriage is on 14. Sorry, my row counter is on 14. So what I'm going to do next is to knit another 7. We are going to the other side. We need to knit 24 rows. 14, is it 24? Oh, sorry, 28 rows. So 28 rows, and I'm saying 24. Oh. Okay. It's 14. Okay, 28 rows. And we need to start on the other side. So we need 7 again. For the other side, we just knit 7 across, and then we'll start hanging buttonhole before we knit the remaining 7 then cast off. Okay, we've knitted 7 now. So our row counter is showing 21. That tells us that we're on the third part. For this one, we need to zoom closer. So to do that, we're going to push. If you take a look at our chart here, you'll notice that we're going to bring these same needles to the needles we brought for the buttonhole to knit the I-cord with. We're going to bring those same needles. So if you have a chart like mine, you'll still remember the needles. So for that, we're going to go closer to the needle bed now. And I'll push. We brought 4, we missed 5, and we brought 4. So I'm just going to do that quickly. You have to bring the same needles that you brought out for the to knit with the ravel cord for the buttonhole. You have to bring those same needles out. The exact needles that you use for the buttonhole, you have to push them out. So I'm just going to okay. We've brought out the same needles that we used to knit the buttonhole loops with the Ravel cord. We brought out the same needles. And if you take a look at my chart, I didn't use, as I said earlier, I didn't use the bottom one, we used the upper one. One needle, the first needle we missed it, then we brought 4 needles to work position for the chart, miss 5, 4, then we miss 5, and so on. And that's exactly what we've done here. But if you take a look at the loop, I'm just going to go closer so that you see it. You will notice that we have 5 loops up. That's because we have an extra loop. Due to the Ravel cord, it has to hang on. We have an extra loop here. To make sure that the stitch of this extra loop, that's to the left, okay, we make sure that the stitch of this extra loop do not lose. We have to bring 1 needle more into work position. So instead of 4 needles, we'll bring an extra needle to the left of each of the 4 needles that we brought for the buttonhole. So not to confuse you, as I work on each one, I'll bring out the needles. So let's start with this first one here. And we are going to pick this upper loop first. We're going to pick this upper loop first, and then we'll come back for the bottom loop. So let's start with this first one. One needle is in upper working position, and the other one is in hold position. These are the ones we picked for the Ravel cord, the same needles we picked for the Ravel cord, and this was the last stitch. So I'm going to bring 1 extra needle because of the extra loop we have, so that it's 5 needles and 5 needles for the buttonhole now, because of the, as I said earlier, because of this extra loop. And we'll do the same for all the needles. But I just want to work with one first so that I don't confuse you, and I'll do that for the others. What we need to do first is that the extra needle is to the left. So I'll pick this first loop here. I hope you can see it. Just go closer. I'll pick this first loop here, the upper loop, and hang it on the first needle, for our buttonhole. Not the one in non-working position, in upper working position. No, the one in hold position. The one for the buttonhole. I think we need to see the needle bed so that you see what exactly what I'm doing. And then I'll manually knit it. Then I'll transfer the stitch from this first needle. It's just like as if you're casting off. From this first needle for the buttonhole, I'll transfer it into the second needle. And I'll make sure both stitches go to the back of the hook. And then we'll pick the loop, this coordinating loop, and use this coordinating loop. We'll hang it in the hook of the needle and use it to manually knit both stitches. We'll move the stitch of the second needle that we have now. because we need empty needles for the bottom loop. I'm going to move it into the third needle. We'll push both stitches to the back of the hook and let the hook be free. Then we pick its coordinating loop. Make sure it's a coordinating loop you are picking, because if you don't, you have a drop stitch and your stitches will start, your knit will lose. You hang that coordinating loop in the needle, in the hook of the needle, and use it to manually knit both stitches to the back up. You knit both stitches, sorry. You take the stitch of the third needle now, you transfer it onto the fourth needle. Pick its coordinating loop. Just making sure you're seeing it. So I'll pick its coordinating loop. Hang the coordinating loop, the hook of the needle, and use it to manually, let me push both stitches to the back first, then hang it in the hook of the needle and use it to manually knit both stitches. You can see we are having a nice cast off edge here. Then move the stitch of the fourth needle to this extra needle, that's a fifth needle. Move both to the back of the hook of the needle. Then this extra loop here, going to pick it and then hang it in the hook. We manually knit it, but we won't transfer the stitch to any needle, just to secure the extra loop there. So move to the second one. We can't pick this one if it were just to be, if there's only one needle, sorry, if there to be one buttonhole, then we'll pick this one now, but we still have a lot to do, so we have to pick for all, we have to pick for all these needles before we start working on, before we start the bottom. So for this, I'll bring the extra needle to the left, as I said earlier, because of this extra loop. We have one loop here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we need an extra needle to the left for this extra loop here. I'm just going to push it a little to upper working position. It makes it easier for me to work with. So pick the first loop. Don't know if you can, I think I should take this off from. So we pick the first loop, hang it on the first needle. Let me see if we can make it easier for us to see. Okay, we pick the first loop, hang it on the first needle, and we manually knit it. Oh, I didn't knit it properly. I'm going to do it again. Yes, so pick the first loop, hang it on the first needle, and we manually knit it. We transfer this first loop to the next needle for the buttonhole. Then we pick that needle's coordinating loop. It's somewhere here. Here it is. We pick its coordinating loop, hang it in the hook of the second needle. We're working on with the second needle, or on the second needle, and we use the loop that we picked to manually knit those 2 stitches. Then we transfer the stitch. After manually knitting it, there will be 1 stitch on the needle. We transfer it to the next needle. And then we pick the coordinating loop for that. Just want to make sure I'm picking the right one. Okay, we pick its coordinating loop and use it to manually knit the 2 stitches. After knitting, we transfer the stitch of that needle to the next needle. Look for its coordinating. So I'll bring the extra needle out because of this extra loop, as I said earlier. Normally you're supposed to do it for all so that you don't miss it, but not to confuse you, that's why I'm doing it one after the other. So instead of 4 needles, you have 5 needles out for the buttonhole this time. Pick the first loop, hang it on the first needle, and then you manually knit the first loop. Then transfer the stitch on the first needle, transfer it onto the second needle. Push both stitches to the back of the needle hook. Pick the coordinating loop. Put it in the hook of the second needle that has 2 stitches on, and use it to manually knit both stitches. Take the stitch of the second needle, transfer it onto the third needle. Sorry, I dropped it. Take the stitch of the second needle, transfer it onto the third needle. You can push the needle forward so that both stitches go to the back of the needle. Then you pick its coordinating loop. If you can't see it's coordinating loop because maybe it's tightened due to picking up stitches, picking up the loop, you can check the other one and you will know which is the loop. So here is it. I'm just going to pick it in. Pick the loop and hang it on the hook of the third needle. Use it to manually knit it. Then transfer the stitch of the third needle, that single stitch, transfer it onto the fourth needle, and you have 2 stitches on the fourth needle as we had on previous needles. Push the needle forward so that both stitches go to the back of the needle or behind the hook. Then pick its coordinating loop. That's the loop of the fourth needle. It's somewhere here. I'm just going to find it out. Find it, and okay, here it is. Hang it in the loop, in the hook of the needle, and use it to manually knit those 2 stitches. Then transfer the stitch of this needle, the fourth needle. Transfer it onto the fifth needle. Then pick the loop of the fifth needle. You can see it here, the loop is just hanging to one end there. Okay. So here it is, you pick the loop. Make sure the stitches of both stitches are at the back of the needle. This will help. Just push the needle forward and you have both stitches at the back of the hook. Then you hang the loop of this fifth needle, this extra loop, hang it on the fifth needle. I need to manually knit both stitches. This time you don't need to transfer the stitch of the fifth needle, you just leave it there. I'll repeat it again one more time and we'll progress to the second step. So pick the stitch of you bring out the extra needle. If you have not done that before, you have to bring them out. Bring the extra needle out. So you have 5 needles to work with because of the extra loop we have above. So pick the first loop. Now we have 2 loops, one at the bottom. We have 2 rows of loop. You have the upper loop and the lower loop. We are working with the upper loop. Pick the first loop and hang it on the first needle. Manually knit it and you have 1 stitch on that needle. Take the stitch, move it onto the second needle and push the needle forward so that both stitches go to the back of the needle or the hook of the needle. Then pick that needle's coordinating loop, upper loop, and hang it in the hook of that needle. You use it to manually knit through the 2 stitches that are on the needle. Then you take the stitch of that needle, third needle now, second needle, move it to the third. You move the needle forward of the third needle forward so that both stitches go to the back of the hook. You pick its coordinating loop, upper loop, hang it on put it in the hook of that third needle and use it to manually knit those 2 stitches. Then after knitting, you take the stitch and move it to the next needle as if you're casting off. Push the needle forward so that both stitches are at the back of the needle or the hook. Pick its coordinating loop. It's coordinating upper loop, sorry, to specify that. And hang it on the stitch of that needle. Sorry, the hook of that needle. And use it to manually knit both stitches on the needle. Take the stitch of the fourth needle now, and after knitting it, take the stitch of the fourth needle, move it to the fifth needle. You have 2 stitches on the fifth needle. Move this needle forward so that both stitches go to the back of that needle. Then pick the loop of that, the extra loop. You see it with a Ravel cord hanging. Yes. So pick that loop, hang it in the hook of the fifth needle, which is the extra needle, and use it to manually knit through. This time you don't need to transfer the stitch of that needle. So I just bring all my needles to working position. You have just bring all my needles to working position. You know you have empty needles, and those empty needles we are going to pick. But before then, we still have the last we have to do the last needle, sorry, the last buttonhole, this one here. So I've done, in case I've done this, remaining this. So because this one, we're moving stitch to the left, we have to move the last needle out. So it's 5 needles out. Take a look at the needle bed. We have 5 needles out for the last buttonhole. We have 5 needles out for the last buttonhole because we have an extra needle. So it's time for this last buttonhole to pick the loop for it. Just going to go closer. If you notice, we have 5 needles out because of the extra loop. So I'm just going to go a bit closer and we'll start picking the loops. I'll move the needles backward a little. I'll pick the first loop. So for the first loop, I'm just going to hang it on the first needle and then manually knit it. And then manually knit it. We'll have 1 stitch on the needle. Then we take that stitch, we transfer it onto the second needle. You push the second needle forward so that both stitches go to the back of the needle, and you pick we'll have to pick its coordinating loop. Here it is. Just trying to make sure it's the right loop that I'm picking. It's coordinating upper loop. We pick it, we hang it in the hook of that needle that we are working on, and we use it to manually knit both stitches as we did for the previous ones. We transfer the single stitch onto the next needle. We pick its coordinating loop upper loop and use it to manually, we push the needle forward so that both stitches are at the back of the hook of the needle. Then we hang the loop. It's coordinating loop. It's coordinating upper loop. We hang it in the hook of the needle and we use it to manually knit through. Then we take the stitch, we transfer it to the 4th needle. We pick the coordinating loop, using our transfer tool. Sorry, I think I mentioned that. Using our transfer tool, pick the coordinating loop and we use it to manually hang it in the hook of the needle and use it to manually knit both stitches that are behind the hook of the needle. Then we'll take the 4th stitch from its needle, we move it into the 5th needle. We'll move the 5th needle out so that both stitches can go behind the needle, the hook of the needle. And we pick the loop. You can see where the loop is. You can see the I cord here. Sorry, I said I cord, Ravel cord. So we pick that loop and we use it, we hang it in the hook of this 1st needle and use it to knit, to manually knit both stitches. We have finished picking the first, this is the first part. So now I'm going to come across the bed, needle bed. I just want us to go closer before we start. You can see that the buttonhole, your buttonhole should be like so. Although we've not finished, but I just want to show you that it's forming. So next is to pick this button loop. Because if you pick the button loop instead of the upper loop, as you're working on the upper, you will close the buttonhole. So now we've done that, we need to get ready for the button loop. The same needles, you don't need to start looking for the needles because they are empty. Now, as we are transferring, we are emptying the needles. So they are empty, we'll have to push those same needles to upper working position or hold position. So we need to push the 4 needles. They are empty needles, so when you see the empty needles, you know those are the ones. So I'm just going to push out it's going to be 4. So you push them. So I'm just going to put them to hold position so as not to miss them with it's going to be the same, the 4 needles, going to be the exact 4 needles you used for the button hole. So this one should be backward. Okay, so here we have the needles. See them? We are going to pick the button loops now and hang them. So we've pushed the needles, the empty needles, to hold position. So I'm just going to push it slightly backward, that I can hang my loops properly. First loop to its coordinating needle to the first empty needle. Second loop second empty needle. I think I took third to the third empty needle and fourth bottom loop, sorry, to the fourth empty needle. I'll repeat it again. I'll just move my needles backward, the empty needles, and the bottom loop, I'll pick them. First bottom loop to the first empty needle, second to the second empty needle, third bottom loop to the third empty needle, and fourth bottom loop to the fourth empty needle. I'll just repeat it a third time, then I'll move my needles backward a little, the empty needles backward, and first bottom loop to the first empty needle, second bottom loop to the second empty needle, always coordinating needle, third bottom loop to the third empty needle, and the fourth bottom loop to the fourth empty needle. You repeat it across all needles on the for the buttonhole, and then you repeat it across all the needles for the buttonholes, so you repeat it across all the remaining needles. So I'm just going to push these ones forward, the ones that I've picked. I'm going to push the needles forward to secure the stitches. So I finished picking them. I'm just going to push the remaining. I'm going to push all the stitches to a power to hold position so that no needle drop their stitch. So that no stitch. I'm just going to push them to a power working position so as not to drop my stitches. If you take a look, we'll finish picking. I'm just going to go closer. If you want to take the ravel cord out now, you can. We've picked the stitches for the loop, the bottom loop and the upper loop. Now we have, if you take a look at the needles, all needles have stitch on it. And you can identify the needles for the buttonhole because we still have our ravel cord intact. If you want to take your ravel cord off now, if you want to take it off, you can. I prefer taking it off after knitting. Some people prefer now so that they see if they've made a mistake and they can rectify the mistake. So we're going to knit, as earlier stated, our row counter is showing 21. We need to knit 7 more to make it. There's 7 more just to be 28 rows of wells. Okay, yes, remember 14 on one side, 14 on the other side because we did a mock rib. So a mock rib like rib band. So we need to knit, we've knitted 21 rows, remaining the last 7 rows. So going to knit still using the same tension, and just make sure your ravel cord don't get entangled in it. You can use your hands to hold it at the bottom. So we have 22. So 1. So we've knitted 28 rows now. It's time for us to cast off. But before we cast off, we need to pick our loops so that we can secure the band. If you still know where your loops are, that's nice. But if you don't, remember you're supposed to knit with a ravel cord. But I know where my loops are, so I'm going to pick those loops. I have a nice crochet edge here, which tells me that my loops are under that crochet edge. So I'm just gonna pick so pick the loops and hang them so that I can secure the band. Make sure there's no knot in your I-cord so that you can pull it through when you can pull it out. You continue until you've picked the whole loops. Continue picking the loops so that we can secure the band. So I'm almost through. I've picked the loops. You can see this crochet edge here. Once you bend it, if you use a Ravel cord, you will see the loop there. But if you didn't use a Ravel cord, you need a sharp eye to see it. It's just under the stitch. So I finished picking. We knit one row from right to left. We knit one row from right to left. We finished picking the loops. So it's time for us to knit one row from right to left, and then we'll cast off. Take your yarn out of the yarn feeder of the carriage and we'll cast off as usual. First, push the first needle out, wind the yarn around the hook of the first needle and manually knit it. Take the stitch of the second needle, move it onto the stitch of the first needle, move both stitches from the first needle onto the second needle so that we have 2 stitches on the second needle. Move the first needle out of work position, because move it onto non-working position. You can see, move it to non-working position because we are decreasing. We don't want to make mistakes. And then you manually knit, wind the yarn around the hook of the second needle, which is now the new first needle, and manually knit it. Take the stitch of the second needle, move it to the first needle, move both stitches back onto the second needle, wind the yarn around the hook of this needle with 2 stitches, which is now the new first needle, and then manually knit it. Take the empty needle out of work position. Continue casting off in the same manner until you have removed your knitted garment or knitwear from the knitting machine, or until you finish casting off all needles or all stitches. As usual, we are using the transfer tool we are using our transfer tool, 1 needle transfer tool, to do the cast off. So after I finish casting off, we need to sew our buttons. Get your tapestry needle. Make sure the buttons can go through the tapestry needle can go through the hole on the buttons. Continue casting off. And let's just take a look. You can see our buttonhole here. All right, we'll continue in that manner, and I'll put the camera on when we finish casting off. So we finished. We finished casting off. We finished casting off. You can see the buttonhole. I've removed some of the Ravel cord. I think there's still one here. So to remove your Ravel cord, insert the transfer tool into the buttonhole, and you see the loops of the Ravel cord. Just pull. So to remove the Ravel cord, insert the transfer tool into the buttonhole and just bring out one end. Do same for the other end. Bring it out. Just try and move. Can just pull it, but be careful not to hurt your fingers, because it can cut your fingers. So be very, very careful when pulling out. It's better if you do them gently, one after the other, instead of pulling out. Can see the buttonhole evenly spaced, nicely done. Let's go to the work surface and let's go. Okay, the next step is to the next step is to sew our buttons to the button band, and then we'll have our nice cardigan, our finished cardigan. So let's go and sew our buttons. It's now time for us to sew the buttons, and to do that, make sure the buttonhole band matches the button band. We've already placed them together now. You can use pins to secure, to pin the button band to the buttonhole band so that they line properly. Then you get your button. I've already threaded the yarn. I'm using yarn. I've threaded it through a hand sewing needle. You can use a tapestry needle as far as it can go through the hole of the button. What I normally do, is take this tapestry needle, put it behind from the button band so that it appears through the buttonhole, and make sure it's not stitching the buttonhole or any part of the buttonhole. Then you place your button on top and note the placement of the button. Because I don't want my button to be to go too close to the left or towards right. I want it to be in the middle. If you don't note it, that's what's going to happen. Your buttons won't be right after you finish sewing them. Now I'll take the pin that I used to secure the button band to the buttonhole band. I'll take it off. I'll just pull this needle out a bit. Then going to take my button, open the buttonhole from, I'm going to unbutton, leaving a long tail at the back so that I can secure the button when I finish stitching. I'm just going to stitch the button down. And at the back, I'm just going to break the yarn, and then make the first knot down to tie it. Then the second time, I'm going to pass the yarn twice into the hole to make the knot, and that is it. So I've already, to take care of time, to make good use of time, since we're supposed to stitch 11 buttons, To make good use of time, I've already sewn the remaining buttons. Now we're just going to button. So this is our cardigan. To finish off, you need a thin crochet hook. Just pass it through the neckline or the neckband. And then you can darn in the yarn, use it to darn the yarn, pull the yarn through, wind the tail of the yarn through the hook of the crochet, or through the crochet hook, and pull it. Make sure it don't come out the back and in front. Then you can trim off the excess. So you have a neat finishing there. You do same for the buttons. So I'll do the others off camera. I'll just do one now. The same for the buttons. The tail of yarn for, let me open them. So the tail of yarn, you just put your crochet hook in, thin head crochet hook, and pull those yarns, wind the tail of yarns into the button band, and you trim off the excess. So I'll do another one. The hook of the crochet should pass the middle of the band, and you have a neat finishing. So I'll do these others off camera, but let me see if there's any other. Same with the seam. If it's let me check. Let me look for one of those seams that okay, like this armhole here. Take the crochet, thin head crochet hook, weave it in and out in the seam. Wind the tail of yarn around the hook of the crochet and just pull it. You have to be careful. Then you trim. If you have time, you can weave the ends with using your overlocker or the zigzag part of your sewing machine. Zigzag stitch of the sewing machine. You can use that too. So now we have knit edge. I'll do this off camera later. Thanks for joining me for this video of knitting a 7-year-old cardigan using the silver reed SK280 knitting machine. You can visit the blog anino.com to keep up with what is happening in the crafting industry. Until then, happy crafting, happy knitting, happy designing. Have fun and remain blessed. Bye for now.